Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. Coming up this hour on the most dangerous show on the airwaves, Katie Wilson wants cameras for motorists, but not criminals. Has it really been that long since Joe Biden's disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan? We dig into what really happened. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
Here in the studio, I'm actually been working on a special episode for 9/11 because we're coming up on the 25th anniversary. When I first got the radio gig, it was the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and I couldn't believe at the time that it had been 20 years since 9/11. Just yesterday, young Zach and another one of our coworkers around here who's younger than young Zach were discussing if they were alive for 9/11. That's the new benchmark that the young kids are using for historical events. And heading into 9/11, I was looking at the date, and I was looking at things on my calendar and things to prep for, and I realized we're almost at a year since Charlie Kirk was taken from us. And when we look at the violence we're seeing in the world today, especially the violence against the United States of America, we're seeing it as all coming from places with similar ideology. And in fact, now there's some science behind it. Individuals who embrace radical gender ideology and exhibit left-wing authoritarian tendencies are more likely to justify political violence. Don't take my word for it. This is a new study that was commissioned by the Department of Health and Human Services. I was talking with a friend of mine the other day, and he said, you know, Ari, people may not like RFK Jr., but he's always got facts, he's always got figures, he's always got numbers. And this person was actually comparing it to Candace Owens' big documentary on Big Pharma. And if you ever wasted your time watching that thing, there is nothing, no data, no science, no evidence from the Candace Owens documentary. There's about as much there as her Charlie Kirk conspiracy theories. RFK Jr. always gets the data. He follows the data. You may not agree with some of his conclusions. You may not agree with some of his hypotheses, but he follows the data. For me, my biggest thing with this whole vaccine discussion has been, is our data flawed? We're talking about all these kids with autism not acknowledging what's going on in Minnesota, where thousands of kids were claiming to have autism just to get funds from the state. Has that been factored in? I actually put in a request the other day with the Department of Health and Human Services because I actually want to ask them that question. This new study released this week found that the stronger the support for positions promoting transgender identities was associated with higher levels of left-wing authoritarianism and greater willingness to justify violence against political figures, law enforcement, federal immigration and immigration facilities, and wealthy Americans. So you're saying the entire leftist agenda is actually a mental disorder? I remember somebody saying that before, writing a book about it, as a matter of fact. Researchers from, oh, you know what? They got to be from MAGA schools, right? This has got to be a MAGA thing, not real science. Because in this house, we believe in science. Science is real. We follow the science. Wait a second. Rutgers University? Hang on. That can't be right. Rutgers is a left-wing school. They did this together with the Manhattan Institute and the Network Contagion Research Institute. Developed a 5-question clinical gender affirmation scale. Using positions drawn from guidance issued by the American Psychological Association, American Psychiatric Association, World Professional Association for Transgender Health, and the American Academy of Pediatrics. None of these are right-wing organizations. The Manhattan Institute is a think tank, which is center-right. The rest of these, science-y people. The scale measured agreement with claims that failing to affirm a transgender identity causes psychological harm, that people should be supported in expressing transgender identities, that using preferred names and pronouns is necessary, and that parents should support their children's transgender exploration. Researchers compared those responses with a 13-question measure of left-wing authoritarianism, defined in the report as a combination of aggression toward perceived oppressors, enthusiasm for top-down censorship, institutional enforcement, and hostility toward conventional social institutions. The study found strong associations between support for radical gender ideology and left-wing authoritarianism. Both measures were also associated with greater justification of political violence across 6 scenarios. So basically what this means is they said, do you agree with what happened in these cases? 1, the killing of Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk. The attempted murder of President Donald Trump or somebody planning the murder of Donald Trump. Killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Setting fire to immigration and custom enforcement buildings. Damaging wealthy people's property. And committing violence against police. Left-wing authoritarianism was significantly associated with justification of violence in all 6 scenarios. Those relationships remained after researchers controlled for what respondents' ordinary political identities, meaning the results could not be explained solely by whether participants identified as a liberal or left-wing. The strongest association involved justification for killing Kirk, followed by arson attacks against ICE facilities, property destruction targeting the wealthy, violence against police, killing Thompson, and killing Trump. This is literally The Dark Knight Rises. I give it back to you, the people, right? That's literally what this is. Sure, let's just give Gotham to the psychopaths. We'll have Dr. Crane doing trials. Death or exile, right? Support for the transgender-related positions, measured by the study, also independently predicted greater justification of violence in all 6 scenarios after researchers controlled for political identity. The association was strongest for killing Kirk, remains statistically significant for killing Trump, killing Thompson, burning ICE buildings, attacking police, and damaging the property of wealthy people. Admiral Brian Christian said in the HHS release, this study raises important questions about what happens when ideology is given the authority of medicine. The association between sex-rejecting clinical beliefs, authoritarian attitudes, justification of political violence warrant serious scientific scrutiny. It starts with, I'm right. Then it becomes, you have to say, I'm right. Then it's, you have to accept my position as your own that I'm right. Look at it in the trans ideology. They didn't like what Charlie Kirk was saying, so they killed him. You know how many attempts that guy had on his life before they actually killed him? You know the security he traveled with anywhere he went? Into the room, out of the room, how they rushed him? How the security guards formed a diamond shape around him? How they had cars ready to go to evacuate him? It's because of the amounts of death threats he got. HHS will continue to pursue rigorous research that examines these relationships and gives the American people the evidence they deserve. Yeah, I think we need it. What do we keep finding out about the people who tried to kill President Trump? And they haven't stopped. What, was there another one last week or the week before? Another guy hiding out at the golf course waiting to kill him? It's like we don't even need to even know what the ideology is anymore because we're just going to guess every single time. What are we going to find? The researchers argued that radical gender ideology may give authoritarian impulses specific enemies and moral justification for coercive action. The report identified Republicans, conservatives, Christians, police, the Supreme Court, men, white men, and people who do not identify as LGBT among the groups perceived as more dangerous by respondents. So the white man is dangerous. Republicans are dangerous. Conservatives are dangerous. Christians are dangerous. The police are dangerous. The Supreme Court is dangerous because they don't accept their ideology. Now they're dangerous. This is what happens when you affirm mental illness, my friends. It gets worse and turns into violence. According to the authors, clinical institutions may strengthen that framework by portraying disagreement over transgender ideology not simply as political or a medical dispute, but as an act that causes harm. If you don't believe what I'm saying, you're a Nazi. And you have to go punch a Nazi. You're a fascist. And you have to be anti-fascist. Why are you mad at me? I'm anti-fascist. I'm anti-Nazi. I'm going to wear my black boots and black shirt and black pants and black mask and goggles because I'm anti-fascist, because I'm anti-Nazi. You're the problem, you over there, who's just standing up for traditional values because you won't affirm my lifestyle decisions. So because you won't affirm them, you are a threat and you need to be eliminated. That's the mindset. And this study bears it out. Quote, gender ideology may function as an ideological accelerant, telling left-wing authoritarian psychology who the enemy is, why the situation is urgent, and in those already disposed toward force, that violence is legitimate. This is a scary, scary, scary study. Because what are we seeing? Left-wing violence on college campuses. Left-wing violence killed Charlie Kirk. Left-wing violence against the president. Left-wing violence against police. And going back to my earlier point, who are they allying with now? They're allying with the jihadis. The jihadis are using the leftist talking points to get their support so they can get elected. But they are using them the same way the Democrats used them in 2020. The difference is the jihadis and these far left extremists have a lot in common. As we discussed the other day, they're using the same social media platforms. They're using the same technology to hide their activities. Why? Because what they want is the end of our country, the end of Judeo-Christian values, the end of traditional Western values that say, this is what we believe in, this is what we don't believe in, and we're not going to bend to your latest fad, which is cutting off parts of your anatomy because you are so disturbed you think you were born in the wrong body. So they get violent over this. You know that when the left doesn't get their way, they riot every single time. They protest, they riot, they get mad. And then if you call it out, how dare you, January 6th? How dare you, January 6th? January 6th, January 6th. January 6th was one day. It was awful. It was wrong. It was terrible. But that doesn't undo the 3 months leading up to it. Billions of dollars in damage, dozens of people killed, thousands of officers injured by the left-wing violence that swept across this country during the summer of love. And now you look at what happens around here. The trans-Tifa movement is one of the most violent movements I've ever seen. The No Hate in Washington State crowd, they're attacking high school girls. They're mad at anybody who comes out to defend high school girls. How dare you don't affirm a boy's right to compete in girls' sports. So we're going to beat you up, you fascist. So we're going to assault you, you Nazi, because we punch Nazis. We're just like the people who stormed the beaches at Normandy. We're doing the same thing with modern day Nazis. That's what they believe. That's what they truly believe. Not just that. That's what's in their hardened hearts. That's what's in their minds. Because according to this study, it's scientifically proven that's what they actually believe. This isn't just, oh, the kids, tussle, the green hair. That's not what it is. They truly believe that if you disagree with them, you deserve to die. And that's why they're so violent. This has been baked into the education system for years. How many times do I get pictures of some kid that goes to school that sees an Antifa flag or a BLM flag or terrorist posters hanging on the walls? This is what they are indoctrinating our youth towards. As much as I make fun of Bob Ferguson about the cell phone ban, the one thing I'm worried about with the cell phone ban in schools is that now we won't get those pictures anymore because the kids won't have their cell phones. They'll still have their tablets. We'll probably get the recordings. We'll probably get all the other stuff. But this is being indoctrinated into our kids against Judeo-Christian values, against Western civilization, against America. And it is so widespread that it is now scientifically proven that leftists are predisposed towards violence because they have excused it in their mind. Because you don't accept me, I have the right to kill you. How do you have a country like that? People talk about a civil war all the time. Do you think we're actually close to something like that? Or do you think this is just a small band? And if you think it's just a small band, I'm going to ask you, what about all the college campuses and what we saw happening in them since October 7th? Think about all the things we've seen about the BLM and Antifa crew since 2016. It's not getting better. They're just waiting for an opportunity to get back into action. Maybe it's because the schools haven't been in session. But this is now what is baked into their psychology, that it is justified that you can go kill somebody you don't agree with. That's insane. Let me know what you think. Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go to the KVI studio line. Take a call from Paul in Port Angeles. Paul, what's going on, man?
Hey, Ari, I absolutely agree with you. I think one thing you didn't touch upon is how empowering violence is to, let's face it, the alphabet people, the transformers.
That's what this is. That's what this is literally talking about. It's saying that if you identify as one of the people in that group, especially the T in that group, you are more predisposed towards violence.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think what it is not so much that they're predisposed to violence. It's you're giving them a free rein, and now that they're implicated, they can't turn back.
Yeah, and you're affirming what's going on inside their heads rather than helping people. I use this analogy all the time, right? If somebody is cutting themselves, right, you don't say, oh, let me get you a sharper knife. If somebody's an alcoholic, you don't say, let me take you to a bar. What is going on right now? Oh, let's affirm your gender dysmorphia, your body dysmorphia. Let's help you out with your drug addiction by giving you more drugs. Unfortunately, that's what society is doing right now. Paul, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Rick says over on the text line, you are correct. We are in trouble. As much as I would like to take credit for this, Rick, it's not me. It's the study. It's the science showing we are all in trouble. Question is, how do we fix it? You have a suggestion, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757, especially with kids heading back to these indoctrination centers, maybe not in Seattle because of the strike, but kids heading back to these indoctrination centers this week. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends, including Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson doesn't want to use cameras for criminals. She wants to use them on motorists like you instead. Tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show. This is an interesting text we got during the break from the 360. Please put the year when you say October 7th. Also remind the number of Americans that were kidnapped and killed. Saying October 7th is numb to many people and shouldn't be. That's a very fair point. So October 7th, 2023, the Hamas terrorist attack, in which 46 Americans were killed. 12 were taken hostage, the majority of which we did not get back alive. So for everybody who thinks this violence is just contained over here or just over there, no, my friends. You want to know why we have such a close relationship with Israel? Because they're the little Satan, and us here in America, we're the big Satan, according to the people who want to kill the infidel. Good point, 360. We'll be better about that going forward. Something we're not going to be better about going forward here in Seattle is preventing traffic deaths. Katie Wilson rolled out. I'm confusing too many analogies. Katie Wilson rolled out this new plan to make Vision Zero better. Vision Zero is, of course, this plan they put in place a few years ago to reduce traffic deaths. It's the thing that gives you all the speed bumps and bike lanes and bus lanes. And ever since they implemented this thing, traffic deaths have gone up. Would you like to know why traffic deaths have gone up? Reason number one, the bike lanes are mixed with traffic, and cyclists keep getting hit by cars, which is why now she's considering no right turn on red anywhere for the cyclists. That's going to slow down the entire city. I don't know about you. I know which intersections have cameras. I make right turns on red, even when it says no right on red. You know why? They have a new city rule. Anytime they work on an intersection, including repainting the crosswalks, they have to put up a sign that says no turn on red. No studies, nothing whatsoever, but they're going to put up that stupid sign. So I make a free right when I know it's safe, when I'm looking the correct way, and when I know there's no camera. I am doing that. That's not going to solve your problem when you have cyclists with traffic, because those cyclists are kamikazes, and they can't make up their minds if they're pedestrians or if they're cars. You cannot be both, and they blow traffic signals all the time. Now you've put their death lanes in the middle of car traffic. So that means more people are going to die. You have another problem. You haven't dealt with places like Rainier Avenue. Rainier Avenue, people just run across it in the middle of the night. No crosswalks, no nothing. They just run across the thing. The amount of near misses I have had in the last 7 or 8 years because some idiot decided to run out into traffic, nothing's going to stop that. But they have that in New York too. But you know what your new plan for Vision Zero isn't going to stop? What happened the other day with me. I told Kevin this story yesterday when I came to the office. So I'm driving, and I'm getting ready to go into the garage, and the garage is behind our building. So I'm getting ready to turn around the building, and there's this dude on a bike, and he's going across the crosswalk, and I'm like, one of our unsheltered neighbors. But I've been living here long enough. I know the signs of crazy. And I go, something's not right with this guy. He's kind of unsteady on the bike. He's moving very, very slowly. Don't try to go around him. Something's not right here. Just wait for him to clear the path. And what happens? He randomly hops off the bicycle and then throws it in my general direction. This lunatic. Then he just stands there staring at me. I put a picture of this on my social media, Ari Hoffman Official on Facebook and Instagram, the Hofffather over on X. I'm sitting there wondering, is this guy going to move so I can make the left or not? Let's take out a camera and take a picture real fast. Turns out, dude wasn't moving. He was just standing there with his bike in the intersection, staring at me. So what did I do? I'm like, this ain't worth it. I'm just going to drive past the dude. He tried running after me. Good luck, drugged out, homeless, crazy person chasing down a V8 SRT Charger that I got from my friends over at Renton Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. When I hit the gas, good luck chasing that thing down on foot. I don't think that's going to happen. So I go around to the next block. I come back around, and I'm coming back up the block, and I see that the dude is pulling the same shtick on another car. Turns out the other car he was doing this to, one of our coworkers. Because our coworker came in. He said, Ari, I got a story for you. there's this lunatic guy out in the street, and he's like throwing bicycles at people, and he's harassing motorists. And he goes, look, I got a picture of him. And I go, you mean this guy? The same exact guy. Katie Wilson's Vision Zero doesn't account for crazy. You can make no right turns on red. You can put in as many traffic cameras as you want. You can make as many bus lanes as you want and bike lanes as you want. But as long as you have meth addicts and fentanyl addicts and mentally ill people wandering the streets throwing bicycles at motorists, your Vision Zero is not going to get any better. Plus, I do love the irony of the fact that now she wants speed cameras. So, speed cameras, good. Crime cameras, bad. We need to make sure all those people who drive are classified as criminals. But all the actual criminals, they're just misunderstood. Everybody clear on that? Everybody got the ground rules? Good. Moving on. Up next, my friends, it's an anniversary of the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. And we are finding out more and more from the Department of War and the State Department of what actually happened that the Biden administration concealed. We'll give you the details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Before we talk about what's going on in D.C. this week, we got some great texts in the last segment. This one here from Rick. We are all extras in a remake of Demolition Man. You mean before San Angeles, right? You mean where Sly Stallone was actually doing his thing that got him encased in that ice. That's what you're talking about. You don't mean like the happy-go-lucky people, greetings and salutations and all that stuff afterwards. Not that, right? This one here from the 206. I didn't know Katie Wilson was so against the environment. Pretty sure they started Rights on Red so cars would just be sitting there spewing their emissions. Great point, 206. Great point. I got a lot of people on the text line asking me about that trans violence and left-wing violence survey. It's literally up right now on the Department of Health and Human Services website. Just go to their press releases section. You'll find it. Just scroll down a couple because this came out, 2-3 days ago? It's right there. Really easy to find. I think it's hhs.gov. Head on over there, go to the press release section. It's right there. I'm happy to share my sources, but that's where it is, my friends. Switching gears over to what happened on Wednesday, August 26, was the 5-year anniversary of Joe Biden's disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan and the bombing at Abbey Gate. The White House said, today we honor the 13 brave American heroes who were tragically killed 5 years ago by evil jihadi terrorists in Kabul, Afghanistan. This catastrophe was a result of sleepy Joe Biden's totally botched withdrawal from the country, which left our wonderful servicemen and women defenseless and allowed the Taliban to free thousands of bloodthirsty terrorists and criminals held at Bagram prison. President Donald J. Trump. He's exactly right. There's no way to sugarcoat that. There isn't. I do remember this. You remember when Joe Biden said, it's not like you're going to see what happened with the fall of Saigon and helicopters getting people off the roof. And you remember there was literally a video of helicopters going in, getting people off the roofs in Afghanistan. And then you remember one of our listeners looked up the tail number. And that helicopter has been in service since Vietnam. It's the same helicopter that evacuated Saigon, literally was evacuating Afghanistan. And I will never forget this as long as I live. One of our listeners called us because their son was serving over in Afghanistan. And it was the day of the bombing. We were covering it. We didn't know what was going on. And he called our show crying because he couldn't get a hold of his son. And I remember, I think it was Jamie Herrera Butler's office at the time. I think. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think they were a constituent of her. And we reached out to the office. Boom, they found out his status. Right away found out his status. They worked really hard. I'm pretty sure it was her office. But they found out where this guy was. But this dad calling us in tears. Now, thank God his son was okay. But think about everybody else who wasn't. The Department of War put out new details about what actually happened because there's a lot of confusion about what happened. And we're not just talking about the stuff we saw in the videos of the airplanes on the tarmacs with people holding on for their dear lives. And unfortunately, those airplanes were from our very own Fort Lewis. I have a friend who used to fly those planes. And I said to him a while back, I said, dude, were you flying those when it happened? He goes, nope, but I trained the guys who did. Think about that for a second. 5 years ago, a suicide bomber killed 13 Marines and 170 civilians in an attack on Kabul airport that came to symbolize the chaotic and ill-conceived withdrawal of U.S. troops from Afghanistan. According to the New York Post, the Abbey Gate bombing was only one part of a heavily flawed August 2021 evacuation. Afghan forces turned their weapons on civilians during the chaos. Local allies who had worked with U.S. forces for decades were left to be slaughtered by the Taliban, according to a new Wall Street Journal documentary. The feature is bookended by choppy body cam footage from the terrorist attack carried out by ISIS-K member Abdul Rahman al-Logari, showing heavily armed U.S. soldiers, many in a state of shock, lying amid the rubble at the airport. The film condemns the Biden administration for its disastrous end to America's forever war in Afghanistan. Then the 2 decades long, pointing out that al-Logari was released from one of the 2 prisons the Taliban emptied after U.S. troops started to leave the country in disarray in the summer of 2021. You remember that? Let's just open the jail cells for all the violent people. And they let out the bomber. Joe Biden, quote, wanted to say to the American people that he was president who got us out of Afghanistan, who ended the forever war. says Paul Giggett, a longtime editor of the Wall Street... Giggett? Is it Giggett or Giggett? The longtime editor of the Wall Street Journal's editorial page in the movie. George W. Bush couldn't do it. Obama couldn't do it. Trump couldn't do it. Biden did it, and everybody took their cues from that. The documentary by filmmakers Michael and Thomas Pack of Palladium Pictures features interviews with retired Marines, diplomats, and others who were eyewitnesses to the hasty pullout and serious collateral damage, much of which went unnoticed by the wider world, which was the focus on the COVID pandemic at the time. Yeah, we didn't have enough going on. Let's just leave Afghanistan. As the August 30th deadline for U.S. forces to leave approached, because we told the bad guys what day we were leaving, Marines at the airport couldn't handle the onslaught of desperate civilians. Special Afghan forces, known as Zero units, trained by the CIA, were called in to help. Those inexperienced operatives didn't know how to handle a crowd and indiscriminately ran over them or shot civilians dead, according to soldiers who witnessed the carnage. They would use vehicles. They would run over people. They would execute people. They'd shoot them. They'd shoot into the crowds, says Joseph Loud, a retired Marine who was at the airport. We were bearing witness to atrocities, to war crimes, and not being able to do anything about it. That is something someone has to take home and wrestle with when they reflect on their service or their experience, potentially for the rest of their life. Members of the Zero units were given priority to leave Afghanistan by the U.S. government because of their service in the country. So we imported the people who were shooting civilians at the Kabul airport. U.S. Marines were also traumatized by having to make life and death decisions at the airport overrun with desperate civilians fleeing the Taliban rule. The U.S. kept changing the criteria for who it would evacuate, and Marines had to determine who had the correct paperwork. Edward Gonzalez, a retired Marine, describes one resident who begged him to allow her into the airport, worried that as an unmarried woman, she would be persecuted by the Taliban if returned to Kabul. Quote, she kept begging all night. I couldn't let her in. And meanwhile, there's thousands of families that got denied, dragged off by the Taliban because they didn't possess the right paperwork, which would have been accepted a day and a half, 2 days later. Most of the evacuees were young, single men who were willing to fight their way through the crowds. Some latched onto a C-17 military transport as it took off. Video footage famously captured figures falling from the airplane shortly after takeoff. A much better option to evacuate U.S. allies would have been using Bagram Air Base, which had been the center of U.S. combat operations since 2001. But on Biden's orders, the U.S. had vacated that base in July, a month before the complete withdrawal of the troops, leaving hundreds of millions worth of war material on the ground to be snapped up by the Taliban. Biden and his policy advisors, including former Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, probably one of the worst secretaries of state we've ever had in the history of the United States, and former National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, again, one of the worst ones we've ever had, refused to listen to military chiefs who begged the administration to maintain a residual permanent force of about 2,500 U.S. soldiers to help the Afghan troops who had been fighting against the Taliban for 2 decades. The Biden administration was determined to reduce U.S. troops to zero. Why didn't you pull them out of Japan? Why didn't you pull them out of Korea? Why didn't you pull them out of Germany? Quote, he said, we said these things. If you pull everyone out of Afghanistan, you pull all the contractors out. If you pull the special forces out, if you pull the air assets out, you don't give us anything, then we will lose, said the Afghan army chief in 2021. The Taliban are still the old people, the same people. The situation with regard to women's rights, it's a disaster. We don't have any doctors on the ground. This is what we were hearing. Everybody was telling him, don't do it, and they did it. Let's not forget, this gave the green light to Russia. Go ahead and invade Ukraine. Nobody's going to stop you, certainly not the United States of America, NATO, any allies at all. Just going to steamroll them in the Biden administration. This is all on Anthony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, everybody in that administration. They are responsible for all this death, destruction, and millions of women, children, being slaves of the Taliban to this day. That's their legacy. Up next, my friends, there's a new category in the AP writing contest. Why is this so insane? You're going to have to stay tuned to find out. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Good texts keep on coming in on the KVI text line. This one here from the 253 on our last segment about the anniversary of the disastrous Biden withdrawal from Afghanistan. Did we get everyone out of Afghanistan? No, clearly we didn't. Clearly we didn't. This one here from Matt. And after Abby Gates, Biden drone strike a family thinking they were getting the people who did it. You remember that? Joe Biden droned some random family going, they're the ones who did it. They're the ones who did it. Just like a video was responsible for Benghazi, right? This one here from the 425. Ari, missed the first part of your program. Did you talk about the 9/11 mastermind still alive and hasn't been on trial yet? Are you kidding me? Now that goes with Rob in Lakewood. Have you covered the CBC's Don't Call 9/11 terrorism? Sorry if I missed it. Guys, I have good news for you. If you wonder what we talked about at the beginning of the show, you can always go to the Ari Hoffman Show Reloaded. Parts of the show you might have missed, which runs from 6 to 7 p.m., brought to you by our friends over at Wade's Eastside Guns and Bellevue Indoor Range, Puget Sound's premier destination for everything firearms. Also, don't forget, you can always get the podcast. But talk about the 9/11 mastermind. Interestingly enough, I got invited to cover his trial. Hey, Kevin, can I get like a week off or 2 weeks or a month off to go hang out at Gitmo and cover this guy's trial? I mean, look, it only took 25 years to get him to trial. I mean, how much longer do you think the trial could actually be? Well, I'm sure it won't be like the OJ trial at all, which could literally take months, if not years. So let's send Zach. Let's send Zach on assignment to Gitmo. Zach, I got good news for you. You're going to Gitmo. You're not a prisoner, but you can't leave. Anyway, Matt Calkins, formerly of the Seattle Times, wrote on his Substack. He said, the AP's writing contest has a new category. Excellence in transgender sports coverage. I thought it wasn't happening. I thought it wasn't a big deal. I thought this wasn't a thing. If it's not happening, why are you covering it? He writes that his mom told him, you just wrote a trans column. Do you really have to write another one? Kathy Calkins, who I've spent the past 5 years visiting, probably has a point. This new venture of mine started due to a spiked Seattle Times column on transgender athletes and girls and women's sports, but it's not going to be a single issue Substack. There was something, however, that caught my attention recently seems worthy of a deeper look. A decision by a sports section's gatekeepers that suggests a column like mine might not have been printed in any mainstream newspaper. Scrolling through X last week, I saw the Associated Press sports editors. You're probably the only one who saw that, dude. Added a new category to their annual writing contest. In addition to column writing, feature writing, breaking news, beat writing, etc., sports journalists will have a chance to win an award for excellence in transgender sports coverage. Perhaps, at first glance, that looks like the AP's attempt to honor those who best tackle what may be the most polarizing issue in sports, a chance to recognize nuance and insight from every side of the debate, like what Matt wrote that the Seattle Times refused to publish. But when you look at how this category was introduced earlier in the month, it appears to be something much different. A large contingent of sports editors trying to end the debate entirely. A man in charge of adding the category is named Eric Hall, he writes, who serves as one of the AP's vice presidents. He says he met Eric when they were working for the San Diego Union Tribune and became friends. Nice guy, but his speech announcing the new category might raise concerns with just how objective many of the organization's sports editors are on the subject. Hall started by mentioning a number of prominent athletes who had come out as gay over the years. No issue there, says Matt Calkins. He later alluded to a Supreme Court decision that upheld laws in West Virginia and Idaho prohibiting transgender females from competing against biological females. Still all good. Where's he going with this? Then came the final 280 words. Quote, our job now is not to reduce transgender athletes to a court case, a statute, or a culture war talking point. Our job is to report what happens next, to tell the stories of girls and women who lose not only a place on a roster, but a routine, a coach, a locker room, a bus ride, a circle of friends, and a sense of belonging, to ask what exclusion costs, to follow where they go, to show what they grieve, what they build, and how they endure. Because when a young person is told she can no longer play the sport she loves with her friends, the story does not end at the courthouse. That is where our reporting begins. And next year, that reporting will have a place in the AP contest. I'm proud to announce that next year's contest will include a new category recognizing excellence in coverage of transgender community in sports. We'll provide full details this fall. This category is not about asking journalists to arrive at a predetermined conclusion. It is about asking us to do what great journalism has always done: report vigorously, listen closely, reject caricature, and make visible the people whom public debate too often turns into abstractions. We are journalists. Words matter. Accuracy matters. Humanity matters. So let's be clear. Transgender boys are boys. Transgender men are men. Transgender girls are girls. Transgender women are women. Their lives are not a sidebar. Their stories are sports stories. And I cannot wait to see the extraordinary journalism the people in this room produce as we tell the stories with rigor, courage, and the humanity they deserve. Calkins writes, I don't have any problem with Hall holding this point of view as an individual. My whole crusade since quitting the Times has been to encourage diversity of thought. But in this case, Eric is representing more than himself. He's speaking for a swath of our mainstream media sports editors. And when you read that speech, what do you see? Is it a show of compassion for people who feel trapped in the wrong bodies and simply want to do what they love judgment-free? Or is it a declaration that transgender athletes should be able to compete against biological females, and that opposing this puts you on the wrong side of the story? Personally, it feels like both. He's exactly right. Because in one paragraph, he says we need to talk about the people who are being excluded, and I assumed he was talking about the girls. But then he says transgender boys are boys? No, those are girls identifying as boys. He says transgender girls are girls. No, those are boys identifying as girls. They are not. And let me ask you this. Given the AP's reputation, you think they would publish Matt Calkins articles on the subject? Or you think it's just going to be, oh, these boys aren't allowed to compete against these girls anymore. These transgender females, they're not female, aren't allowed to compete in girls' sports. They're being banned from girls' sports. They're being banned from all sports. Just watch. I'll tell you something, guys. We have an opportunity. If we actually vote yes to protect women's sports in November, it'll start a domino effect across the U.S. because everybody will look at Washington and say, if they can do it there, we can do it too. The fight with protecting girls' sports starts right here in Washington. And we can do it, my friends. We absolutely can do it. We can get this done. But it takes your help, talking to your friends and saying it's not a ban on transgender athletes. It's just protecting girls' sports. Don't you believe in protecting girls' sports? Otherwise, are you a bigot? That's how you do it. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. Sound Transit says they're going to get fare gates in 4 years. Tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com, the KVI app. Coming up this hour on the most dangerous show on the airwaves. We've got a representative from the State Department joining us to talk about how they're combating birth tourism. Another child is dead because of the Keeping Families Together Act. Will Democrats actually vote to end this insanity this session? But before we get to any of that, my friends, yesterday, Sound Transit's board approved a pilot program to install test fare gates at up to 14 stations, and they're going to be ready by 2030. So, 4 years from now, you're going to have to pay for that light rail. 4 years from now. Well done, guys. Really well done. Couldn't have done this from day one. You might have more riders on it. You know that the BART system and many of these other major cities' transportations, when they put in fare gates, saw not just their revenue increase because now people are paying for the train. They saw crime go down because it's part of the broken windows philosophy. What is broken windows? And this is what Giuliani got hit with from the left. Oh, it's racist. Oh, no. You should be asking yourself why people with certain pigmentation in their skin commit crimes more than other racial groups, more than other ethnic groups. We should be having that discussion. Just them committing the crime doesn't make it inherently racist. What broken windows is if there is a window broken on a building and you don't fix it, then there will be more windows broken on a building. Then it'll be vandalized. Then you don't upkeep the grass, and et cetera, et cetera. It gets worse and worse and worse, and that starts affecting the entire neighborhood. One of the aspects of broken windows is fare evasion. This could be turnstile jumping or anything else. And they found that a lot of people who are inclined to jump the turnstiles actually had warrants out for their arrest or other convictions. In New York, they had the squeegee men. It's only a matter of time until we get them here, by the way. What are the squeegee men, if you don't know what they are? You would come off a highway exit, and some dude would be standing there who looked homeless with a spray bottle and a rag or a squeegee. And he would start spritzing your windshield and would not let you drive away until you paid him, even if you said, no, 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 no. When they started cracking down on these guys, they found out a lot of them were wanted on other charges, had outstanding warrants, had multiple convictions. So when you get those guys off the street, crime goes down. They found the same thing in New York with fare evasion. They're finding it now in San Francisco. They're finding it now in other cities that when you actually enforce the law regarding train fares, then guess what? You don't have as many criminals because people who try to evade the fares are often criminals or radio show hosts who say, I paid enough for my car tabs. That's usually who the people are who are evading the fares. So now Sound Transit is finally going, well, we know the study says we should have fare gates. And we know that it's worked in these other cities. We're going to try it out. Maybe it's different here. So now they're going to try it out. It'll be ready by 2030. Wow. Well done. You mean that maybe you wouldn't have the homeless people? You remember that video that came out during COVID with just all the homeless people sleeping on the light rail? You remember during COVID, they were actually sleeping at the baggage terminal, the baggage section, baggage claim of SeaTac. They were setting up homeless encampments in the baggage claim of SeaTac during COVID and taking the light rail to go wherever they wanted during the day. They had bed bugs on the light rail. They had meth on the light rail. They had fentanyl content on the light rail. What was it, 100% of the air samples and like 90% of the surface samples had all that drug content in them? Well, you think maybe if you keep the homeless people from free riding on the light rail, maybe you'll have less problems and other people want to get on the thing? Just a thought. So great. Now they're going to have this thing 4 years from now. Question is, you may have waited too long. If you wait 4 years from now, how many people are still going to be riding your trains? Now, what I find fascinating is the stations they're talking about doing this with are the ones where you have to go downstairs or upstairs. You need to go somewhere where you have to access the train. They're not necessarily talking about those flat glass ones that slide apart for the light rail stations, which are above ground. I notice a lot of the ones above ground are in minority communities. So they want the rich people paying for the train. Sorry, guys. The rich people aren't taking the train. They are driving. Funniest thing I saw today, Kevin, I saw a car in our garage. It's got all the Bernie stickers all over it, and I expected it to be a piece of junk. It's a Mercedes. I was laughing about that one. All the socialism and stuff on a Mercedes, that is so par for the course here in Seattle. Anywho, so what happens? They're going to put these fare gates on. Okay. Are there going to be any employees left here? More layoffs this week. We've been covering them. Plus, let's not forget, we covered earlier this week that transit agencies, not just Sound Transit, but also a lot of the bus lines have seen a drop-off in people using them. I know we saw all those headlines during the World Cup. Record usage for a day, for a week, for a month when you had all these tourists here. I notice I see the light rail go by empty all the time, and it's still cruise season. How do I know? One of them cruise ships is making a U-turn outside my window as we speak right now. I see another one getting ready to go, and I know in about half an hour, 2 more are going to come from the other side. Those people ain't taking the light rail. So who's actually taking the light rail? As I said, it's a rolling homeless encampment. And you are replacing the wealth you are driving out of the city with the people who are here for the free ride, like Katie Wilson. Katie Wilson, perfect example. Come here with no job, never got a job. Her slacker husband doesn't have a job and doesn't watch the kid either. So she has to get her parents to pay to watch the kid. And we elected her mayor, so now we're giving her $300,000 a year. Wow. Best jobs program ever. Look how generous we are to the unemployed. We give you $300,000 a year and let you screw up an entire city. Well, speaking of screwing up an entire city, do you remember the day she won the election? The day she won the election. What did she do? She gave a little speech, told everybody who were her detractors to watch her and see if she does a good job, and we were not disappointed, my friends. We were not. I mean, we all knew it would be bad. I knew it would be this bad. In fact, I don't think we're at the tip of bad. I don't think we're at the end of bad yet. I think there's more bad to come. Just wait, just watch. It's going to get worse. Somehow, some way, it will get worse. But do you remember what she did right after she gave that speech? She went running down to Starbucks to protest with the lunatics who had been on strike for months. The Ventifada, the people wrapped in the keffiyehs who were sitting outside protesting Starbucks, the baristas on strike for better wages. What did Starbucks do? It closed 5 locations that were unionized because it didn't want to put up with this nonsense anymore. The unionized locations were ones in high-traffic areas like the Space Needle, like hospitals, like UW. They were closing these because they didn't want to put up with these lunatics anymore who are dressing in terrorist outfits to protest that they want better wages pouring your coffee. I recently started drinking chocolatey coffee stuff. I don't like coffee. I drink this chocolatey garbage with some caffeine in it. It is the girliest drink ever. It's like a child's drink. Everybody makes fun of me whenever I order a coffee. They always go, "You want the white mocha with the this and the that?" That is like, what are you ordering there? For me, coffee tastes like dirt. But, whatever. So I have to cover it with as much stuff as possible. I found this amazing device that makes coffee for you. Kevin, I don't know where it's been my whole life. A Keurig machine? Amazing. I didn't even know where these things have been. I'm in a whole new culture now because I didn't drink coffee before. Now that I'm trying to drink more coffee as opposed to hot chocolate because I got to lose some weight, and coffee's been very helpful with that for a different reason. But anywho, now we've got this Keurig machine at home, which apparently has been there for years. It's been there for years. I use it to make coffee for my wife, and guess what? They have these little packets that are for me now. Do you think I need the barista? You haven't seen me bringing in the Starbucks that often now, have you now? No, because cheaper to do it at home. Cheaper to get, and guess what? Tastes the same. Tastes exactly the same. I have to add the milk myself. Real problem there. So now these idiots are talking about going on strike again. Starbucks just announced that they are moving 2,000 jobs to Nashville. Oh, sorry. They're not moving them. They're expanding while laying off people here in Seattle. Right. So expanding 2,000 jobs to Nashville while reducing 2,000 jobs here in Seattle. That's what they're doing. And you guys want to do this again? You want to go on strike against them? The union representing thousands of Starbucks workers has called on consumers to boycott the coffee chain, according to the Huffington Post. Let me make sure I got this right. You want higher wages, so you want your company to make less money because then you think they'll be inclined to pay you higher wages. Starbucks Workers United said Tuesday it was calling on everyone who supports working people not to patronize the company's corporate-owned stores. They're all corporate-owned. I don't think they do franchises over there at the Starbucks. Every single one of them is corporate-owned. They're not owned by the people. Until it reaches a collective bargaining agreement, the campaign, which is part of the union Workers United, insisted it was left with no other choice. God, the slave-like conditions you guys work in, making over $30 an hour, medical, college tuition paid for. Oh, the horror. Oh, how do we live? The horror. It's so terrible. Oh, and we get tips on top of that. And they kind of guilt you, staring at you till you hit the button for the tips at the Starbucks. Oh, I feel so bad for you. At a time when working class people across the country are struggling in a challenging economy, it is no longer possible to be both a Starbucks customer and a support of workers, they said in a statement. Choosing to spend money at Starbucks is choosing a law-breaking corporation over the baristas who make your coffee every day exactly as you ask for it. Yes, I love when you guys get my name wrong every single day. I stopped giving my first name because with Ari, I would get Harvey, I would get Avi, I would get Erie, I would get all these weird variations. So then I started doing Hoffman, right? I don't care if you spell it right or wrong, that's fine. But I started getting Kaufman, I started getting Offman, I started getting Landman, I started getting all the different, Spider-Man, started getting all the random things. They can't hear you over whatever's going on behind them. I don't blame them. They can't hear you. Workers at more than 700 Starbucks have voted to unionize since late 2021, though none of them are covered by a contract yet because Starbucks would be insane to actually work with these people. What, anytime they get mad, they're just going to go put on their keffiyehs and protest outside? How about no? How about no? So now their plan to pay the baristas who deserve your money more or the company's money more is to call for a boycott of the company. Let's see how it works out. Let's see how it works out for them, huh? Let's see how that goes. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out for them, right? How do you think this is going to play out for them? Last time, they closed dozens of stores. They've already closed 40 stores in Washington. We talk all the time about how there's no Starbucks near us. When I saw this story this morning, you know what I did? I had to drop my daughter at school, and then I went and got a Starbucks for the first time in like 2 weeks just to piss off these people. Yeah, I'm going to go back. Craziness. Absolute craziness. This is why companies don't want to do business here. This is why companies don't want to do business in blue states or blue cities. Buc-ee's CEO, according to Fox 13, suggested recently that the Texas-based travel center chain may be done looking into blue districts, saying some communities do not appreciate what the company brings, while conservative states offer business-friendly and family-oriented values. Really? Oh, what a surprise. Oh, I'm so surprised. That's what this is. Arch Beaver Alpin III, the company's president, he'd better have a name like Beaver if you work for Buc-ee's. That's his name, dude. I'm just reading off the page. The company's president and co-founder made the comments during the grand opening of Buc-ee's newest location in Benton, Arkansas on August 17th. The chain is known for its expansive gas stations, famously clean restrooms, and in-house food offerings. I love a good gas station bathroom and a good gas station convenience store. I love that stuff. I would plan my routes for my delivery company around where the best bathrooms were. The ones on the tribal lands, those were always great. Didn't have to deal with the drug addicts. I like the ones with the big TVs on the gas. You want to know where you go for gas, you look for the ones with the big TVs for no reason whatsoever on the gas pump. That's where you look. He said we have a lot of opportunities. We're growing. We're building in a lot of places. But when you find conservative business-friendly state with a phenomenal workforce, it makes a difference. He also criticized states that he said do not appreciate what Buc-ee's brings to their communities, suggesting the company would rather focus its expansive efforts elsewhere. He said, I'm starting to realize life's too short to try to build in places that people don't appreciate what you're bringing versus a place like this where people do appreciate what you're building. What happens if you open one of these in Seattle? What happens if you open a bunch of these in Seattle? We need to tax him. He needs to pay his fair share. Needs to pay his fair share. And us workers, we need rights. We're going on strike. You need to pay us more. Oh, and that's after the homeless steal from your convenience stores and destroy your bathrooms and do all the drugs in the bathrooms and wander around. You know, yesterday, I went to a gas station I've never been to before. Some of you are going to yell at me. Some of you are going to yell at me at the gas station I went to. So yesterday, I had a crazy day. I had to go back to the Museum of History and Industry. We'll have that interview for you next week. I had an interview with the curator about some controversy that's surrounding a certain exhibit. I'll have that for you next week. It'll be fun. You'll enjoy the whole interview. I did an hour and a half in the museum. It's crazy stuff. So we'll talk about that next week. It's a great interview, and you should go to Mohi this weekend. You absolutely should. Love that place. Anywho, so what happens? I came down from Leshai, and I realized how low I was on gas. The light had gone on a while ago, and it's my wife's car, and it's relatively new. I don't know how far it can get on the light on, but I know I've been riding it for a while. So I pull onto Rainier Avenue. I know a lot of you are going first mistake. And I make that turn, right before you make that turn onto Dearborn to go past towards the stadiums, right over there off of Rainier Avenue. There's a Shell station over there. And I'm like, all right, Shell station, can't be that bad, right? Oh, first mistake. Yesterday was an eventful day for me, Kevin. I get bicycles thrown at me, and then this. I pull in. I'm in my wife's car. I'm not in my car. I'm in the Jeep I got from my friends over at Renton Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. I'm in the new Jeep I got for my wife. I pull into the gas pump. I get out. I'm dressed in a suit thing because I had appointments that day. Immediately, two homeless guys come right over like I'm like a fly catcher or something. They come like a homing beacon. Sir, you got change? Sir, can you help me? Sir, No, I got nothing. Sir, I was impressed they were calling me sir and not just, holding a knife to me or something. I was swarmed. And I got into that situation, which I'm sure many of you have been in before, where you lean your back against the car so you can see what's going on around you while you're filling up. And I'm wondering if I have to reach for a certain thing that's in my glove box because it's getting so bad down there. Yeah, Seattle. Woo! Yeah, Seattle. It's great. And these guys were not taking no for an answer. They were aggressive panhandlers. What do you think would happen to a Buc-ee's here? Why do you think a Buc-ee's doesn't want to come here? Why do you think they don't want to go to blue cities and blue states? Because they don't want to have that happening to their store. Because what did I just say on air? I just said I went to a Shell station, and this happened. You think Buc-ee's wants Ari Hoffman saying, I went to this Buc-ee's and these homeless guys accosted me, and let me tell you exactly where this thing is. No, of course they don't. They don't want to be dealing with this. They don't want to be dealing with striking employees. They don't want to be dealing with government officials who say you haven't paid your fair share, even though we're taking your taxes on every single thing you sell. We're taking income taxes. We're taking B&O taxes. We're taking everything. They don't want to come to places like this anymore. Will there be anybody left to ride the light rail by the time the fare gates actually go in? Talk about closing the fare gates after the homeless guys left the barn, or is that the train? Whatever it is, that's who's going to be left riding this thing, and then they're going to stop riding. Imagine what the ridership count will be after that. Abysmal would be my guess after all the businesses leave. Up next, my friends, the Keeping Families Together Act is responsible for yet another child's death. And this case showcases the failure of so many Democrat policies. We'll give you the details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, we are giving away tickets to see Taylor Dane at the Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel on September 6th. Of course, Taylor Dane is a global pop icon behind Tell It To My Heart. You can get those tickets by entering the contest over at kvi.com. That's kvi.com. Also, my friends, we are giving away two tickets to the Washington State Fair. That's right, my friends. It is fair season again. So we are giving away those tickets to the Washington State Fair over at kvi.com as well. You can also check out our podcast over there. You can check out new articles that are up over there. And you can also enter to become a KVI insider. So that way you never miss a contest or anything else. Switching gears for a minute here, my friends. Heading on over to what's happening on the text line. This one here. Thank God I've been staying away from Starbucks since Howard Schultz sold the Supersonics. That and the fact that their coffee tastes like burnt leather. All of it tastes like dirt to me. Sorry, guys. The nuance is lost on me. This one here regarding the trains. Hey, Ari, it's the Dow Constantine effect. Too little, too late. Afterthoughts are the norm with clowns like this, says John in Auburn. This one here from the 425. When I was in New York and no squeegee man came up to me, I made it quite clear that I was going to hit them if they didn't move. And I'm not going to say that never happened. Okay, I think that's admitting to a felony. I don't think you can drive them down just because you don't like them very much. This one here, Ari, about the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan. Do we really know if Biden was cognizant of what was going on? Was he really in charge and actually calling the shots? By his actions at the airport when the bodies of 13 murdered soldiers were brought back, I don't think he had a clue of what was happening, says Frank from Burien. So, do you remember this when Biden gave the press conference during the disastrous withdrawal? When the press was basically yelling questions at him because it was such a disaster, and he put his head down on his binder like he was going to cry? Do you remember that? I will never forget that as long as I live, where he's like, oh, I just want to go somewhere and hide in a corner and have an ice cream cone. I will never forget that. No, I don't really think he was running the show. Jay says, Ari, I identify as a radio talk show host. May I fill in for you sometime? Which I think is just great. That's fantastic. Anywho. Switching gears over here to what's going on locally. A 1-year-old Seattle boy died with fentanyl in his blood and urine just 18 days after both of his parents failed drug tests, and the Washington Department of Children, Youth, and Families allowed the children to remain in the home under a safety plan. The case is likely to renew scrutiny of Washington's controversial Keeping Families Together Act, which raised the threshold for removing children from dangerous homes and has been blamed for leaving children with parents actively using fentanyl and other hard drugs. According to charging documents filed Wednesday in the King County Superior Court, Seattle police were called to an apartment on South Grand Street on August 23rd after a 1-year-old M.H. stopped breathing. The child's mother, 39-year-old Davina Tagalan, allegedly told first responders that she had fentanyl inside the apartment and believed her son may have gained access to it. Firefighters performed 10 rounds of CPR before declaring the child dead at the scene. Seattle police described Tagalan as appearing high or intoxicated with slurred speech, difficulty focusing, drooping eyelids, and appearance that suggested she was about to fall asleep. I'm sorry, I blanked up. It's all my fault, she allegedly told police. She reportedly admitted she was addicted to fentanyl and had taken a nap on the couch while holding the child. When she awoke, he was limp and no longer breathing. She told investigators that she normally kept fentanyl in a container on the bathroom counter and locked the door to prevent her children from reaching it. However, she allegedly found the bathroom door open and a lighter normally kept with her drugs on the couch. Police said she could not locate the fentanyl when officers arrived. During a search of the apartment, investigators found suspected narcotics in the bathroom and the family's bedroom, according to a probable cause certification. A police drug detection dog also alerted to a bathroom trash can containing suspected drug paraphernalia. The documents state that all the locations were accessible to children. Police also allegedly discovered a .22 caliber handgun in a box in the bathroom, accessible to the deceased boy and his 2.5-year-old sister. The same box reportedly contained the children's Social Security cards. Tagalan and the children's father are both convicted felons prohibited from possessing firearms, and yet they found a .22 caliber gun in the house. Can we go through all the things that were supposed to prevent this? All of them? Let's start with this. let's start with this. The fact that you have all these gun control laws and felons aren't supposed to have guns and somehow they had a 22 caliber handgun in an accessible box in the bathroom. Well, you mean those lock boxes that you mandated everybody get don't actually work? You mean those lock boxes which you put drugs in don't actually work because the druggie's too high to realize it? We've talked about the Keeping Families Together Act before. We've talked about this thing, and we have discussed how Democrats refuse to change this ridiculous law, which allows drug addicts to keep their kids in the house with open drug use. We've had now hundreds of kids die. Hundreds. And yet, they don't do anything about it. Nothing at all. It's crazy to me that nothing is done about this. It's crazy to me that this isn't being addressed and that Democrats won't do anything about it. What, you think it's racist to take kids away when somebody's a drug addict? This one here, 2 convicted felons, drug use in the house. Oh, and it's worse. DCYF had been, quote unquote, working with the family for approximately a year before the child's death. On August 5th, Tagalan tested positive for fentanyl, while the father tested positive for cocaine. Rather than remove the children, DCYF implemented a safety plan for a 1-year-old and his sister. A safety plan. 18 days later, the boy was dead. 18 days later. DCYF did this. What's your safety plan? What, you gave him a box and said lock up the drugs in the box? This boy is dead because of Democrats. This boy is dead because of DCYF. Why are we funding these agencies if they can't keep kids alive? These people were in the system for years. Literally 4 years. I know the story came out in the media a couple days ago. I waited until I had all the court documents because they're horrifying. This was entirely avoidable. Between the Keeping Families Together Act, between all the laws they've passed, between DCYF corruption and failures and incompetence, another kid is dead. Another kid is dead. How many does it take, Democrats? How many more need to die? It's insane. And too many in the media are not drawing the connection between the Keeping Families Together Act and this, which is crazy. Beyond crazy. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. Birth tourism. It's a thing. It's a thing across the country. We have a representative from the State Department joining us to tell us what they're doing to combat it. Tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, my friends, the Trump administration is doing everything it can to shut down birth tourism because we're talking about how many people come here just to have kids. Why we are doing this is beyond insane. Other countries don't do this kind of stuff. So if I go to France, not that I would want to go to France, and my wife has a kid in France, that kid is now automatically a French citizen. That makes no sense whatsoever. Joining us now on the KVI studio line, for our Newsmaker Spotlight, brought to you by our friends over at Renewal by Anderson, Deputy Spokesperson for the U.S. State Department, Luke Ortega. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Ari, and this is such an important subject. I'm glad to get to discuss it with you.
It really, really is. So why don't we start out with this? A lot of people don't understand what birth tourism is. Why don't you give us a short breakdown of that?
Well, the shortest way to describe it is fraud. But what it really is it's someone who's saying that they're coming to the United States for a purpose of tourism. They're coming to visit a friend, to go shopping, to go to a national park. But that's not really why they're coming. They're coming for the purpose of giving birth so that their child is going to be able to acquire American citizenship. It's fundamentally being dishonest with the consular officers. Those are the people who issue visas at our embassies and consulates around the world. And it's a fraud that impacts not just the United States government, but it impacts our taxpayers as well, because oftentimes those folks are leaving without actually paying their hospital bill.
Insane. Absolutely insane. I don't know any other country which does this kind of stuff, where you just come in and now all of a sudden you're a citizen. I mean, this is the kind of thing that we really need to deal with. So how is the State Department combating this?
We have set up a task force that is looking specifically at this issue. We set it up earlier this month, and this task force has already identified and revoked more than 900 visas associated with individuals involved in birth tourism. And just to give you a little bit of a sense about this kind of breaks down into two broad categories. You got individuals who do it, who just show up of their own volition. They lie to us. They tell us, some kind of fake story about why they're coming in order to have their child in the United States to get American citizenship for them. That's one category. And then there's a whole other category where you have services. You have agencies that are advertising this online. They're telling foreigners, hey, we can get you U.S. citizenship. We can get you a world without borders and a U.S. passport. And they're charging tens of thousands of dollars to people to bring them here. So we're working to identify both of these categories and to revoke the visas.
So then I guess the question is, how do you really know until somebody has the kid that that's what's going on here? What are the ways you can figure this kind of stuff out? I mean, the agencies, sure, that you can figure out. But if a person gets off a plane and they happen to be pregnant, I mean, is the border agent going to say to them, hey, when are you due? Is that how we deal with this?
Well, we try to start even before that. So, I mean, we make very clear to folks that it is not an acceptable motive or reason to travel to the United States to have a child there. What we're doing with this task force is we are bringing consular professionals, immigration professionals together to go through with a fine-tooth comb at all of the information that we get from these visa applicants to see where they're going, what the points of contacts are, what their travel patterns are like. Oftentimes it's what addresses that they're listing that they're going to go to, because we really try to set up a very, very stringent vetting process to make sure that anybody who's coming to the United States, we get as much information about them as we can. And we look at the whole picture there. We identify trends, we identify patterns, and then when we have confidence that those patterns indicate that someone is coming for the purpose of giving birth, we go on ahead and we pull that visa. And sometimes, frankly, you have people who are repeat offenders, folks who come and go multiple times, having multiple children in the United States in order to get citizenship for them. So it's really something we have to take seriously, and that's why we put together this task force.
In the last few minutes we have with U.S. Department of State Deputy Spokesperson Luke Ortega, for playing devil's advocate for a second here. Some people might say, so what? So what? They just want to come into the U.S. How does what they're doing actually harm American citizens?
Well, I think there's two obvious things. First of all, our citizenship should not be for sale. It's a sacred privilege to be an American citizen, and that's always going to be our guiding principle there. But I also want to revert back to something that I told you at the very top here, which is that a lot of times what's happening, these people are coming, they're having their children in the United States, they're racking up a hospital bill, and then they're simply dining and dashing on that hospital bill and leaving it for the American taxpayer to foot the bill, and that's only going to contribute to everyone's, insurance premiums going up. It's something that is fraud that hurts us all the way down, and it's tens of thousands of people trying to do this every year. We're determined to cut that number down as much as possible and get it to zero, hopefully.
Luke, just before we let you go, what sort of offenses typically trigger the revocation of a visa?
Revoking visas, and we talked about it in the context of birth tourism, but every visa decision that we make is about national security. And so far under the Trump administration, we have revoked more than 175,000 visas of people who are breaking our laws and who are breaking the terms of their visas. The majority of these people are people who are getting arrested in the United States for crimes that they're committing here. I am talking about driving drunk, assaulting people, burglary, drug crimes. This is a really serious challenge. And I'm going to tell you something, Ari. I was just on the phone last night with a friend of mine who works out abroad in the field at one of our embassies, and she was telling me that just last night she revoked the visa of someone who had been arrested 25 times in the United States and still had a visa. This is why this administration is taking action to revoke these visas and make clear that people who are coming to break our laws are no longer welcome in this country.
Well, I'll say the 25 arrests. Those are rookie numbers here in Seattle. You got to bump those numbers up. I mean, we need people with 50, 60, 70 arrests. Luke Ortega, Deputy Spokesperson for the U.S. Department of State. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for your hard work. And you have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Ari. I really appreciate it. Hope you have a great weekend.
You as well. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. When the massive fraud was exposed in Minnesota by Nick Shirley, Minnesota had a choice: admit what's going on or demonize Nick Shirley. They demonized Nick Shirley. But then you couldn't avoid how bad it was in Minnesota. Now, another blue state saw what was coming, and many investigations have been opened in that state, and that's California. But California wants to demonize Nick Shirley. And I said this was going to be something, as soon as California announced this thing, I said this is going to be something you are going to see across the country, across the entire country, where blue states are now, rather than dealing with fraud, blaming the journalist who exposed the fraud, which is the craziest thing. So Gavin Newsom signed the Stop Nick Shirley Act, which basically criminalizes investigative journalism. I don't think this thing ever survives a Supreme Court challenge, but a Supreme Court challenge could literally take years. And I won't be surprised if Democrats in Washington, if they get a supermajority in the Washington state legislature, start trying to do the same thing to people like me, Brandy Cruz, Jonathan Cho, and everybody else who exposes their insanity. TJ Martinell from the Center Square. Just watch. They'll find a way to do it. They'll also find a way to keep public disclosure requests hidden, because TJ Martinell has found out all their dirty secrets, all their dirty little secrets. So, what happened? He signed it this week. Gavin Newsom signed the bill into law. Rather than deal with the fraud, let's go after Nick Shirley. So, billions of dollars in fraud exposed. But let's go target the journalist who exposed all of it. So, there was a rally for Nick Shirley to combat fraud in California. Jonathan Cho was down there for Frontlines, powered by Turning Point USA, and covered the event. Here's what it was.
Now what he's doing is spreading a completely false narrative.
Depending who you ask,
thank you for being here.
Nick Shirley is an American hero.
I'm here just to send my support.
I'm going to protect the free speech.
Or public enemy number one.
I know what the fuck you are.
Wednesday afternoon, his presence alone triggered a massive rally in front of the California State Capitol building in Sacramento. Packed with his adoring fans.
Oh, he's so tough!
And haters. The independent journalist called out Assembly Bill 2624, also dubbed the Stop Nick Shirley Act.
California, the politicians, instead of going after the fraudsters, they've now gone after those that are going to expose the fraud.
Shirley says the bill criminalizes his brand of investigative journalism.
Now they want to prohibit people from being able to go and film these locations to expose them.
Which in turn could stifle freedom of speech and possibly discourage other independent journalists from going out and looking into fraud, waste, and abuse allegations.
Prove me wrong.
But the bill's supporters say it protects immigrant services workers facing death threats and online doxing.
You can't ask me nothing. Get out.
Especially after Shirley exposed massive corruption in the state's hospice care system.
Yeah, and they've already uncovered billions of dollars of fraud.
Right? How stupid do you have to be to say, okay, let's go after the guy who's exposing the fraud. Let's not go after the fraudsters.
Democratic Assembly member Mia Bonta championed the bill.
What made you create AB 2624?
Beautiful thing about California
is
that we actually don't support misinformation.
And says the addresses of immigrant-run nonprofits and NGOs will be shielded from public records if the threat is legitimate.
That is my stance. Thank you so much.
And is minimizing Shirley's concerns.
Mia Bonta is the wife of the Attorney General Rob Bonta. While the Attorney General is supposed to go and prosecute the fraudsters, his wife is actively creating bills to stop the fraudsters from being exposed. This is Quality Learning Center. I meant to say Quality Learning Center.
Since his first blockbuster expose into Somali-run daycare fraud in Minnesota, his life has been turned upside down.
I've never faced an actual bill or law crafted to target me.
Shirley says he's constantly facing death threats.
Unfortunately for me.
And must now travel with an armed security guard.
From people putting the location out on the internet of where I live, to people showing up to the house, just to the constant onslaught of death threats as well on my phone and whatnot. It did get pretty crazy.
You're the man. Nick Shirley getting stopped everywhere. I can't go anywhere without this guy getting stopped now.
But he says for now, it's worth the risk.
You can stand up and you can actually do something inside your community.
Keep doing what you're doing, man.
So many other Americans have been inspired by his work to question elected leaders and get more involved in the political process.
For so long, people have felt scared or hindered to actually go out and do something inside the community because they'll be labeled as a racist, Islamophobic, or they'll be called a far-right individual, when in reality, nothing that we have to do is far right. Everything that we have to do with is common sense.
Shirley says he isn't going anywhere, especially since bad actors and corrupt officials are still trying to swindle hard-working taxpayers.
Now it's time for people with common sense to actually rise up.
There's still so much more that needs to be exposed.
You know what's crazy? The fact that activists are showing up to kill him. Now, it would be wrong still, but it would be, I guess, more understandable, which is a horrible way to phrase this, if the people who are committing the fraud, like the mafia, are like, this guy's ratting us out. That's not who's showing up to try and kill him. It's these leftist activists who are egged on by people like Tim Walz, who are egged on by people like Gavin Newsom, which is crazy. Then there's this little moment. This video is circulating on the interwebs. A reporter from the New York Times was sent to cover the rally for Nick Shirley at the California State Capitol in Sacramento. Now, I have seen this happen before, where a journalist is just assigned a story, clearly doesn't know anything about it, and is sent somewhere with an agenda, a clear agenda, and is just trying to have confirmation bias for the agenda. So this woman walks up to Nick Shirley, and I don't know, what she look like in her late 50s, early 60s, something like that. That's a full head of gray. You know, at these Nick Shirley rallies, they're either going to have gray hair or green hair if they're on the other side, right? So this woman walks up to him from the New York Times, and this, what is he, 24, 25-year-old kid, makes her look like a total moron. Give a listen.
So I was just, the people who are supporting this bill, like they say that has nothing to do with you, they introduced it long before you had come to California, that it's really not about your work here.
Not true.
Why do you say it's not true?
Because I announced on January 31st I was coming to California. I had already filmed the videos. The word had already gotten out that I filmed inside these immigration support service providers, and then they created the bill before I published the video.
Well, they say that it
I love the wheels turning right there.
has to do with work, like experiences that immigration service providers have been having for quite a long time, including last year, like that they were not aware of your work when they felt that there was a need for this bill.
It's a lie, quite frankly. And there's already laws out for people that are being doxxed and for people that are being threatened. There's no need for this bill. They're making a protected class by specifically saying immigration support service providers, and then they say included but not limited to, and they list a whole bunch. But what does that exactly mean? It's so broad that quite literally anything underneath them could be an immigration support service provider. There's 10 million immigrants here inside the state of California.
Yeah, she didn't know what to say. That interview is 5 minutes long, and there are massive gaps in it. Massive gaps where you just see like her brain's going to overheat. Nothing worse than going in unprepared to something. Now, something else more entertaining about this is something similar happened to me with Doge Washington. You remember when we started Doge Washington and we were exposing all that fraud on a regular basis? Glenn Morgan's doing that fun right now with all the requests that he's been filing. When we started that, taxpayer-funded KUOW sent a reporter to do something similar with me. They asked me what my connection to Doge Washington was. They also asked where I was getting the data. The funny thing was, do you remember how I was posting the data on social media? They were screenshots of the Washington State website. With the website, it says Washington State Fiscal Information. One Google search. And I remember saying to the reporter from KUOW, did you look at any of my screenshots? No, my editor just sent me to do the story. That report never ran in KUOW. Oh, I'm brokenhearted. My name wasn't mentioned in KUOW for this. Why? Because I made them look like an idiot on social media talking about the conversation. This woman has now gone viral. I bet you the New York Times doesn't run the story. Because everybody will just point to the video and go, you moron sent in a woman who didn't know what she was talking about. Nick Shirley told California he had found all this stuff before the video went live. Then, before the video went live, they started working on the Pass Nick Shirley Act to stop this kind of stuff. That's what they were trying to do. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable and not surprising. You remember what happened when we started exposing all the stuff in Washington State? You had Nick Brown say he was going to start prosecuting the journalists. Wanted people to contact his office if they felt like they were being persecuted by journalists. You remember that? Yeah, Nick Brown did that. You think they're not going to try and pass something similar to what Gavin Newsom just signed into law in California here in the Washington state legislature? The Democrats have complete control of the thing. They'd be crazy not to try. That's going to be added to the list of the other insanity coming up in this legislative cycle. Just watch all your worst nightmares. If Democrats get a supermajority, they are all making a reappearance. If they maintain the majority, they're all making a reappearance. Just watch, guaranteed, and there'll be nothing to stop them. Final hour free-for-all is up next. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free for all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. Coming up this hour on the most dangerous show on the airwaves, Katie Wilson. Doesn't like those cameras for criminals, so she wants to criminalize motorists instead. I wish I was making this up. Plus, Ilhan Omar's son now in trouble, not just the daughter, also the son. But before we get to any of that, my friends, you guys have a lot of things to weigh in on over on the text line. This one here from John in Auburn. Ari, surely the states who are fighting Nick Shirley need to be investigated by the Trump DOJ. Funny you should mention that, John. A lot of them actually are. Robin Lakewood says, yes, Washington Attorney General Nick Brown threatened journalists investigating the Somali daycares with hate crimes charges. Ah, yes, that was nice, being threatened with hate crimes charges. What exactly was the hate crime that was committed? What was that? I don't remember. All it was saying, hey, this guy's getting a whole bunch of money claiming he's operating a daycare. He's not operating a daycare. What exactly is the issue there? Somebody want to explain that one to me? This one here, TJ. TJ says, regarding our earlier interview with the State Department about birth tourism, back in the day, airlines used to not let you fly if you were more than 6 months pregnant. I think that was more a medical thing. I'm not sure that was necessarily related to immigration. I know there was a certain point where the doctor told my wife she wasn't allowed to fly anymore because they're worried about her giving birth on the plane. I think that's more a medical thing, not so much an immigration thing. Switching gears over here, updating a story that happened earlier in the week. Websites tied to Portland's Rose City Antifa and the militant abortion rights group Jane's Revenge began going dark, according to Fox News, in the days after the State Department designated their Italy-based technology provider a global terrorist entity. You remember earlier in the week, we revealed that the State Department had designated, and I'm going to butcher this because I don't speak Italian, Autisci Evantati, known as the AI Collective, which we're going to call them that, as a specially designated global terrorist over its alleged support for violent left-wing networks. Basically, what they were doing was they were providing web hosting, support, communications for these groups. And who was using it? Hamas, Hezbollah, IRGC, Rose City Antifa. That's Antifa based down in Portland. You know the lunatics who were coming up here for the autonomous zone? The lunatics who were behind 120 consecutive nights of rioting. This one here. Just one day after the extremist collective was designated as a specially designated global terrorist group, an untold number of servers and websites used by far-left extremists to plot violent attacks, target federal agents, and conceal their crimes from law enforcement have been shut down. Among them was Rose City Counter Info, a Portland-based website the State Department says Rose City Antifa used to publish personal information about immigration and customs enforcement personnel and organize violent activity against federal agents. The State Department said the group used the site to distribute an online flyer urging supporters to use laser pointers against custom and border protection helicopters. Federal records show one man later pleaded guilty to aiming a laser at a Border Patrol helicopter, forcing the aircraft to abort a planned landing. Yeah, that could have been way worse, by the way. Jane's Revenge also used AI services to publish communiques claiming responsibility for attacks on pregnancy centers and to incite copycat violence. The group claimed responsibility for the May 2022 firebombing of a crisis pregnancy center in Madison, Wisconsin. The No Blogs platform, which is hosted by AI and contains thousands of sites, was intermittently available on Friday. Some individual pages remained accessible, while others returned errors or timed out. The State Department has not said whether any U.S. agency directly disabled AI infrastructure or whether the outages resulted from decisions by the collective, its vendors, or its users after they were designated a global terrorist organization. Talk about the rats fleeing the sinking ship. That's what you're watching happen. The sanctions action blocks Americans and U.S. financial institutions from doing business with this group and freezes any assets it holds under U.S. jurisdiction. The State Department says that AI Collective provided encrypted chat, email services, web hosting, secure video tools, anonymity services to violent left-wing groups in the United States and Europe. The department also said a media organization using the AI services disseminated material from Hamas, the IRGC, that's Iran, Hezbollah, and other designated terrorist groups. So Antifa is using the same platform as designated terror groups. It's just an idea. It's just an idea. It's not an organization. Antifa, just an idea. Yeah, I remember running from them chasing me. I was being chased by an idea during the autonomous zone. The collective denied the allegations in a statement posted to one of its no blogs hosted page. So you use the thing, which is now a global terrorist asset, to post your response. They describe themselves as a small volunteer-run technology collective from Italy that provides tools for digital self-defense. And then they write this: "We will not back down. Anti-fascism and anti-capitalism are not well, here we go. Here we go. Protesting is not terrorism. There we go. Hamas is. Hezbollah is. The IRGC is. The PFLP is. All these terrorist organizations, actual terrorist organizations, guys, and you are doing business with them. Not like the Israel way where you sell them pagers and then everybody gets to enjoy the fun later. No, not like that. So you're admitting it. Anti-fascism. So you guys were working with Antifa. Anti-capitalism. You want to take down America. Protesting is not terrorism. You were hosting groups that lit things on fire, that firebombed things. You were hosting groups that are actual terrorist organizations that launch ballistic missiles at other countries and U.S. assets. Guess what, guys? I don't believe you. I think your little statement here proves you are guilty as sin. So who's next? I'm getting kind of excited. I can't believe it. As a conservative, I'm now excited about who the federal government is actually going to go after next. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said the IRS could revoke the tax-free status of left-wing nonprofits such as George Soros's Open Society Foundations, who are, paying protesters and the lunatics on Gaza encampments at college campuses. The Southern Poverty Law Center, which apparently is paying the KKK. Apparently they bought the wood and the oil and the gas for the burning crosses, maybe even some Klan outfits. And wait, what? And the Council on American Islamic Relations? Oh, happy day. I was thinking this was never going to happen. Finally, after me banging this drum and ringing this bell for years, they're finally going to go after CARE. CARE, who you might know. We'll do this one time for the drinking game because I know how much you guys enjoy it. CARE, the unindicted co-conspirators in the Holy Land Foundation trial, the largest terror financing trial in U.S. history, which was convicted of providing money to Hamas, funneling money to Hamas. CARE just took over their operations, allegedly, I have to say. Let's not forget the founder of CARE said he was happy to see the October 7th massacre. Let's not forget the Biden administration cut ties with these guys because of how radical they are. Let's not forget the DOJ wasn't under Trump that declared them an unindicted co-conspirator. It was under Obama when that happened. So let's be real about these guys. We've had multiple investigations, and my favorite one was when one of their employees sued them because she claimed she was fired without cause. And then during discovery, they settled the case because they didn't want to turn over their financial records. There's a whole bunch of questions about their financial records and where their money actually goes. Let's not forget also, CARE is endorsing candidates in the upcoming election. Over at KVI.com, if you go to the search panel, because the ballots haven't dropped yet, we'll put it back up when they have, but you can still find the article, My Voter's Guide. If you head on over to that, it specifically says if somebody's endorsed by CARE, 63 candidates in Washington State are endorsed by a group with ties to terror. Do I have to say alleged ties to terror? Alleged ties to terror. So, 63 candidates running here in Washington. And now Treasury and the State Department might be going after them. This is part, according to the New York Post, of Trump-backed crackdown on bogus charities, not tragedies, charities. And Treasury officials are drawing up a sweeping audit of outfits deemed to be using and abusing Uncle Sam's tax code. The three people briefed on the Treasury Department's internal policy deliberations told the outlet that Bessent's inner circle is drafting a blueprint that could ultimately strip non-compliant organizations of their 501c3 status. According to two of the people familiar with the plans, the reviews could result in massive back payments and civil penalties. The initiative leans in part on the 2025 executive order signed by President Donald J. Trump, targeting nonprofits operating with a substantial illegal purpose, paving the way for the IRS to issue fines or even strip the tax-exempt status of charities allegedly tied to political violence, protests, or radical ideologies. Officials have also scrutinized a number of anti-corporate, labor-aligned advocacy groups that could end up on the blacklist, including Private Equity Stakeholder Project, the Anti-Amazon Athena Coalition, left-leaning Watchdog Media Justice Strategic Organizing Center, along with its parent union, this just gets better and better, the SEIU. I'm actually working on an expose on the SEIU. I love how they try to demonize right-wing donors like Brian Haywood, and yet they give millions more because they know they're going to be rewarded by Democrats, because Democrats in the legislature control the purse strings and can just give more money to their foot soldiers at SEIU. One of the sources warned that the Treasury Department officials were like a dog with a bone and reckoned that many of the groups and their donors could be on borrowed time. Good! These aren't regular protest groups. Some of these groups were behind the insanity on college campuses targeting Jews. If it happened at Howard University and they were targeting black kids, you know that the left would be having press conferences on those campuses saying we have to stop this stuff. The hypocrisy says everything. The aggressive crackdown is already facing fierce legal blowback. Left-leaning legal powerhouse Protect Democracy, is that funded by Soros too, sued Treasury and the IRS earlier this year, accusing the administration of illegally weaponizing the tax code against its political opponents. I remember there was this president who did that. Who was the one who was denying 501c3 statuses to conservative groups and pro-Israel groups and anti-tax groups? Oh, right, that was the Obama administration. Yeah, you guys would know all about that, wouldn't you? The suit claims Bessent and the White House are bypassing strict federal tax laws to conduct a partisan witch hunt that violates the First Amendment rights of progressive charities. You mean like when the Biden DOJ decided to designate parents who didn't like hypersexualized, hyper-radicalized curriculum as domestic terrorists and went after them? I'm just making sure we have a level playing field here. Just making sure. While there's intense internal pressure from some administration officials to get a good chunk of the crackdown over the line before the midterms, others have argued for delaying formal enforcement until later in the term to avoid triggering massive, protracted legal battles, the three sources said. There's a fear that adding high-profile domestic political targets, like the SPLC, is going to bring, and Soros' network, by the way, will trigger a wave of lawsuits. You know what happens with Soros' network? Do you know that somebody is listening to my show? Somebody is reading my articles from Soros' crew? Anytime I mention him and they don't like what I say, and they think I got something slightly wrong, I get a demand for a retraction. Every single time. It's nice to know that George listens to the show, or his crazy son Alex listens to the show, or somebody from their organization is tasked with listening to my show every single day. In fact, it looks like somebody else has been paying attention to the things I've been reading and writing. This one cracks me up. So an organization came out showing how the Muslim Brotherhood had infiltrated the Canadian government. We discussed this on the show a couple days ago. The nearly 200-page report called Assault on Democratic Values and Principles, How Islamist Entryism Weakens Civil Society and Higher Education in Canada, argues that the activity should not be viewed as a coalition of unrelated organizations or incidents, but as part of a structured transnational strategy involving ideological entrenchment, institutional embedding, narrative control, political mobilization, and legal protection. So you have the Muslim Brotherhood spreading its tentacles throughout Canada. Well, apparently, they didn't like my coverage of this, so I got an email. From a company they've hired to be their PR people. Dear Ari, I hope this email finds you well. You recently published an article titled Exposed Muslim Brotherhood Linked Groups Influence Canadian Elections, Launched Vote Palestine Initiative report regarding the newly published ISGAP report Fox News reached out to include comments from our client who was mentioned in the article, and they updated their publication. Well, I'm not Fox News because I just confirmed all this stuff myself. What are you guys going to say? We're not terrorists? We ask that you update your article to accurately represent both sides of the story. What's the other side of the story? That the Muslim Brotherhood is not making its way through Canada? Because they are. Please find below the comment from the Muslim Association of Canada regarding the report. Now, here's where this gets fun, okay? This comment is provided on the condition that is published only in full, exactly as written, without edits, excerpts, or paraphrasing. That's not industry standard, by the way. This gets better. If it cannot be used in its entirety, it is not authorized for publication. Additionally, it must not be relegated to the bottom of the article, but placed alongside the references to the Muslim Association of Canada to ensure readers receive a fair and balanced perspective. You guys are not my editor. You guys are not Mr. KVI. You do not get to determine how I write an article. You do not get to do that. Please attribute this statement directly to the Muslim Association of Canada. I am only facilitating their response, so my name should not be included. So wait a minute. You're doing PR for these guys, and you are giving me a statement, but now you don't want your name included? They gave me a statement. It's nonsense. But because they asked so nicely, maybe I should read it. The report is nothing more than recycled Islamophobic tropes dressed up as research. It is biased, unsubstantiated hit piece that relies on discredited allegations that were themselves challenged by the Ontario, is it now the America Superior Court, for their apparent bias. The CRA audit has been completed. Preliminary questions raised around any links to the Muslim Brotherhood were dismissed from the CRA's final conclusion. MAC is a solely independent Canadian organization. The ISGAP report amplifies narratives designed to fuel Islamophobia and sow division within Canadian society. One little teensy tiny problem. I took your little statement. I looked up all the cases you referenced. And no, you are lying or telling half-truths in this entire statement. So respectfully, no, I am not going to add your BS statement to my article. I'm reminded of Tommy Lee Jones in The Fugitive. You know when you have that cop who fled and left Dr. Richard Kimball and the deputy had been stabbed behind? And now Dr. Richard Kimball has to save the stabbed deputy. So Dr. Richard Kimball pushes him out of the bus before the freight train comes barreling through. And he has that dramatic scene that was played on repeat in the 90s as he's jumping off the bus and the train's colliding with the bus. And then what happens is the cop is telling the story. And that's when you have the U.S. Marshals listening and skeptical of his story. And he's like, no, he's dead, and I don't think he got out. They're all dead. They're buried in the wreck. And then one of the marshals comes up, and he goes, he's got the leg irons right there. And Tommy Lee Jones is like, leg irons with no legs in them. I need a search of every outhouse, doghouse, henhouse, and whatever. He does that whole thing right there, right? And then one of them says, would you like to revise your BS statement, sir? That's what we're looking at here. Would you like to revise your BS statement? Because that's what this is. Up next, my friends, lots more to discuss as the show continues. Speaking of BS, Katie Wilson has a new plan to stop traffic deaths, and it's BS. It's not going to stop anything. Give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a few reminders for you. Number one, we have two contests going on at KVI.com right now. First is the Washington State Fair is just around the corner, and you can win free tickets. So head on over to KVI.com right now for your chance to win two tickets. And we will be out there for Military Appreciation Fridays. Next week, I think, Kevin. Oh, you're not going to be here, Kevin, next week. So next week, we'll come up with a schedule of when everybody's going to be at Military Appreciation Fridays. So we'll let you know when that's going to be as soon as we have the details. You can win two tickets right now at KVI.com. You want to buy tickets to the fair? Head to thefair.com. I haven't looked at their website yet for special exhibits. I love the special exhibits. Wait a second. Is Fair Media Day coming up? Fair Media Day. Ride the roller coaster with nobody around in the park. I should talk to Zach about that. Okay, next, Red, White, and Win with KVI. We are giving away a pair of tickets to Taylor Dane at Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel, who is performing on September 6th. Head on over to KVI.com. Today is your last day to enter that contest. Head on over to KVI.com right now for your chance to win. Also, I have a lot of you in my texts and emails today saying, Ari, did you cover this? Ari, did you cover that? Guys, if you missed part of the show, don't worry. The Ari Hoffman Show Reloaded is coming up at 6 p.m. from 6 to 7 of content from today that you might have missed, an extra hour of the show. Plus, you can always get the podcast at whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Now, this story here. Do you know, have you seen this sign, this billboard that's been put up by a veteran? According to Como News, called a sign of the times, that disabled veteran put up a billboard along Seattle's Aurora Avenue calling out the corridor's ongoing problems with shootings, drugs, and prostitution. Victor Fleming, wonder if he's related to Ian Fleming, said he resorted to the roadside advertisement after unsuccessfully trying to get city leaders to address not just these problems, but what he characterized as a system that facilitates bad behavior. He says, I'm talking about the whole city. I think we have become a city of enablers. They are just throwing good money after bad, good money after bad. They are not solving the problem. The billboard cost him $2,750. The sign reads, would the last taxpayer to leave the Emerald City change the name to the Blue Tarp City of Thieves, Druggies, and Shooters? Paid for by V.A. Fleming. Followed by his personal phone number. That's ballsy. Put a personal phone number up on the thing. Fleming said he has repeatedly called the mayor's office, but nothing ever comes of it. He said health concerns keep him from showing up at City Hall to give public comment at council chambers because he has lung cancer and prostate cancer. Once the sign went up, heads started to turn. Fleming said the issues he put in bold type started to get more attention among the public. He estimated he has gotten 150 calls, and all but 2 have been supportive. The billboard captures a sentiment by many that city leaders routinely ignore the problems that plague not just Aurora Avenue, but Seattle as a whole. He's up on Aurora. So what's on Aurora Avenue? The hookers are up on Aurora Avenue. Kevin, have you seen this billboard? When you're driving by, you haven't seen it up there? Sex trafficking activity out in the open, including what appear to be underage girls being exploited in plain sight. By the way, sidebar.
By the way, you said that's where all the prostitutes are up there. Hey, Kevin, have you seen that billboard? What are you implying?
I'm not implying you're up for the you live up there. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
not that you're checking out the prostitutes.
Let's clear that up for the audience,
right.
okay?
For the audience, Kevin lives near Aurora. He's not going looking for this.
Actually,
okay?
I'm on the other side of the freeway.
Okay.
I have friends that live especially in that area.
I got you.
And then I shop over. I do some,
run shop over there.
Run errands around there, the grocery stores, stuff like that. But
I got you.
I love that. Oh, by the way,
no, that was not my intention.
Boy.
Wait a second. Hang on. You can make fun of me about this. I'm driving in Seattle today, and there were a few of them in downtown Seattle. I don't know if they just got off shift or something. I don't normally see the hookers in downtown Seattle, the ones that you see up on Aurora. They usually stay in the Aurora area. They were on 4th Avenue. On 4th Avenue in downtown Seattle, in the middle of in the morning. I don't know what's going on there in the morning. I mean, there's not that many business people on a Friday, especially since the tech guys don't come to town. Now, what this guy's saying, and this billboard he put up, of course, it reminds everybody of the last one leaving Seattle, Turn Off the Lights from the 1970s. It's very, very similar to that. But really, it's actually showing something deeper. We know this. They're chasing out all the wealth, and they're importing the thieves, druggies, and shooters. This guy dropped $2,700 on this. Imagine if you put up a whole bunch of them in the city. Imagine if you put up with one with Mayor Fivehead that said something to the effect of resign. Imagine if you put one up that said, hey, Seattle police, do we have descriptions of the shooters yet? I mean, we could do these all day long. We really, really could. $2,700, it's not a bad investment, especially if the media is going to cover it. Somehow I think if I put up a billboard, I wouldn't be getting the calls from the media. That's just a hunch, by the way, just a hunch. But yeah, good on this man for doing that, especially a man on a fixed income who's retired and has cancer. But he feels like he has to say something, so he puts something like that out there. I wonder if Katie Wilson will listen to him. No, she's going after motorists instead. You hear they're getting rid of, she wants to get rid of right turn on red in Seattle for the cyclists. She wants to install traffic cameras to go after motorists, but not turn back on the cameras to go after the criminals. That's Katie Wilson. This is her safety plan. Why do you think she wants to do that? Revenue. City needs money. And those traffic cameras produce money. They make money by ticketing you. You know the solution for these things? Flip it over on the back. There's a box you check that says, I wasn't driving. Just flip it over and send that on back, and you're good to go. No problem at all. No problem at all, because those things aren't really legal. They're not really. There's some serious questions, because how can they prove it was you driving? My sister-in-law one time, she got caught by one of those things, and I said, oh, just check the box on the back. She goes, you can see my dog hanging out the back window. Like, it's not the dog it's not you, it's the dog. And she goes, I don't know, it's pretty obvious it's me. I'm like, okay, fine. You want to pay the $250 or whatever it is. Go right ahead. Up next, my friends, Lars will be unleashed. That's right, our weekly check-in with our friend Lars Larson. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. One of my favorite things about working here at Talk Radio 570 KVI is I get to talk to my friend Lars Larson every single week, whose show you can catch here from 12 to 3 every single weekday. Lars, I'm looking at all the analysis of Longview of this industrial disaster that we had. We're still talking about this thing. It seems like it was totally avoidable, and it brings in some real question about accountability and the regulation. And I know for a conservative like me to be talking about more or less regulation, that seems like a problem.
Well, it does. And ordinarily, I'm against more government regulations. I don't think they make us safer. However, here's the problem. In the case of Dynaway, the company that's part of Nippon Paper out of Japan, one of the biggest paper makers, I think second biggest in Japan, one of the biggest in the world. They have 11,000 employees. They do a ton of business, and all they make is paper. Well, the problem was this facility they bought, I think, from Weyerhaeuser years ago in Longview had a tank in it, and they had an inspection done of the tank. And we now know, it only came out today, that inspection showed that the outside company called in to do the inspection said, this tank is not fit for service. And I think I gave you the metaphor. If you go to the shop and you say, hey, does my car need anything? And they say, well, you're going to need new tires in about 20,000 miles. You're going to need new brakes in about 10,000 miles. And you say, but nothing right now. No, you're okay for right now. On the other hand, if somebody says, hey, you got a problem with one of your wheels and you shouldn't even drive away from this shop because the wheel is cracked, and if it comes apart at highway speed, you and your family are going to be dead. This company got that kind of warning from their own consultant that said, this tank is currently not fit for service. Now, consider what was inside that tank. 900,000 gallons of a caustic substance called white liquor that's used to break down paper pulp and make the paper products. So you have this gigantic tank. You've got workers all over the place, and they're telling you the tank is no good. It is not fit for service, and it has 900,000 gallons of liquid in it, weighing millions and millions, tens of millions of pounds, and you're going to keep on using it without taking any action whatsoever? My question would be, should we allow that company to operate inside the state of Washington at all, knowing what we know about what they did with that warning?
See, my answer would be no, but here's the problem. You don't know you have a problem until you have a problem sometimes. So, for example, here's what I mean by that. They were warned that you have this issue. It's been inspected, right?
Right.
Sometimes government comes in and goes, like, for example, City of Seattle Planning Department is what I'm thinking about. Government comes in and goes, you need to do this because of green stuff, right? You need to come in and do this.
Right.
So there's a problem where, okay, there are some companies you can't trust to regulate themselves, and government you can't trust to regulate people. Sometimes government does a good job. Oftentimes government does a bad job. I don't think there's any magical solution for this.
No, I don't think there's a magic solution. But here's the thing. One of the things that surprised me after this accident happened was when they said, oh, if this tank had been buried underground, the state of Washington regulates that kind of thing. But because it was sitting above ground, there are no regulations, and the state does no inspections. So it's entirely, and am I suggesting that having state inspections of these things is the answer? Although you watch, the legislature will probably respond to this accident by saying, well, we weren't watching the tanks. We have no regulation. So we should slap a bunch of regulation and mandatory inspections and everything else. I don't think that necessarily makes people safer. In this case, what you have to do is have a consequence for the company that did this. And one of the consequences, I think, Ari, should be, do you think that whoever it was in that company in America who made the judgment call, they got the report, not one of the worker bees, but one of the guys in the corner office or gals, and looked at it and said, you know what? And they said, boss, this says this tank should not be full of liquid at all today. And the boss said, yeah, you know what? We'll get to that at some point. That person who waved off the warning, that person, I think, should face criminal charges. I would make the argument that it would be like a company that sends somebody out and says, hey, you got to drive to Spokane in a big rig truck. And the mechanic says, boss, the brakes on that truck are gone. They're completely gone. You're going to expect somebody to come down I-90 on the east side of the Cascades towards Spokane or Ellensburg with no brakes? You're going to kill that person. The person who ignored that warning deserves to be charged criminally for what happened.
Right. I don't think it's a murder charge, but I think it's a manslaughter charge.
No,
I mean,
negligent manslaughter is the charge, not murder.
Exactly.
You didn't intentionally kill somebody, but if you said, I knew about the problem, I knew that they had told me that this tank, which obviously anything that if it had contained 900,000 gallons of water.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? You saw the force of the water in China and Nepal. Imagine standing next to a tank when 900,000 gallons, if it had been ordinary, clean, pure water, not a caustic substance, what would it have done to a person standing next to that tank?
Yep. And for the people who are thinking right now, maybe we do need more government, I will remind you that our EPA inspectors have contaminated more places than they've saved and created a giant mushroom cloud in East Palestine, Ohio, because a train derailed. So I'll tell you, it's like, I think we need regulation. Sometimes it's private regulation. Sometimes it's the companies doing self-regulation. You would think that if they're worried about something blowing up, they would make the right decision. But unfortunately, sometimes they don't. So what's the solution here, Lars?
Well, I think if you put people on notice and you say, the next time one of you out there ignores something that says this is a current danger to your employees today, and you say, we're not going to shut that operation down, it'll cost us too much money, keep on operating. And at some point down the road, this was, I think, 10 months before the accident. So 10 months go by. This isn't the boss saying, well, you know what? Empty that tank, bring it down to a safe level. We'll get people in to work on it right away. And then if you had an accident, at least the boss has taken some action. They took no action for 10 months. And apparently, as near as we can tell at this point, was there any plan to do anything in the next 10 months if this accident had not happened?
Doesn't seem like it at all. Well, Lars, I'll tell you this. I mean, look, we've got Boeing out here in Washington, and we know that Boeing was irresponsible with a few of these things as well. But I think there should be consequences for the people who ignore these warnings. And I also think that's better to be on the safe side, where even if the city shows up and says, hey, you need to do this, and even if it's something that's safety-wise, I don't think you can ignore something like that. Green nonsense, I'm all in favor of ignoring.
No, the green stuff, the DEI and all that. But I'll tell you what, imagine if you're the head of a company and you're put on notice, if you ever ignore something like this, it isn't just going to be your company is going to have to pay a fine, or you might have to find a new job. As far as I know, has Dynawave even announced that the people who ignored this warning have been fired or disciplined or demoted or anything else? And how about, and if they say, well, it wasn't my call, I kicked it up the chain of command to somebody in Tokyo, and they're the ones who said no. But still, if you're put on notice, if you're the person on American soil who makes the decision that puts lives at risk and you know you're doing it, then you may face criminal charges. You will get people in corner offices in America going, boss, I'm not doing it. If you tell me to do that, I'm going to quit because you're putting me on to go to jail, to go to prison for killing people.
Yeah, I completely agree. Lars Larson, you can catch a show every single weekday from 12 to 3 right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Lars, have a wonderful weekend, my friend.
Have a great weekend, Ari.
Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news headlines put a smile on your face heading into your evening commute. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode, another amazing week of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And this good news, by the way, is, somebody asked me what would make me turn on Trump. I think this will. You announce a new space academy and you don't call it Starfleet Academy? What the hell, man? I mean, it's bad enough you stole the Starfleet logo for the Space Force. It's literally the Federation logo. You're not fooling anybody. We all know it's the Star Trek logo, okay? That's fine. I'm fine with that. If this is how we get actual enterprises flying around, I'm fine with this. Because Star Trek's supposed to be our future. It's not Star Wars a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Perhaps Trump is the one who creates Starfleet Academy. But you could have called it Starfleet Academy. I guess it's not the Starfleet. Maybe that's why.
What are you going on about, nerd?
Okay, I will tell you.
I'm kidding.
I will tell you. Trump went out to open the new Space Academy today.
And you don't like that name. You think that there was an opportunity to go full nerd.
Yes.
And get into your
your
Trekkie nonsense.
Yes, and they didn't do it. Missed opportunity. I mean, sure. Give those Artemis astronauts medals. And sure, talk about calling the International Space Station. And sure, open a space. Hey, wait a minute. I don't think it was called Starfleet originally. I think there's still hope for the nerddom. I have to go back and double check the VHS tapes I have. So wait a minute. I can watch on Netflix. Who am I kidding? Star Trek's on Paramount. I'll go watch that. Get caught up on Strange New Worlds. Anyway, when the president was at Starfleet Academy, that's what I'm calling it from now on. President was at Starfleet Academy, gave out a few medals of honor, Congressional Space Medals of Honor to the Artemis astronauts.
We gather here on these storied grounds, though, to celebrate the immense courage and service of 4 intrepid space heroes whose sense of daring and adventure led them further from Earth than anyone has ever traveled before. Incredible. That was an incredible evening. For us, it was evening. A lot of different times all over the world. But for me, it was evening, and everybody stopped. I was at a very important meeting with the biggest people in the country, maybe some of the biggest people in the world, and somebody said, "I'd like to watch Artemis." I said, "You would, really? Right in the middle of our meeting, you want to watch?" And we actually had a television pulled up, and everybody was spellbound. Somehow, maybe it's Jared, but somehow that just caught the imagination, and we watched every minute of it. In fact, the meeting was a disaster because after that was over, they were so excited, nobody did anything. So it was a total waste of time, but what can I tell you? But it really brought spirit. There is a spirit that we didn't see in this space so much, and now you've really brought it back. And today we're proudly awarding the Congressional Space Medal of Honor to the remarkable crew of Artemis II. Please join me in congratulating Commander Reed Weissman, Pilot Victor Glover, Mission Specialist Christina Cook, and Mission Specialist Jeremy Hansen. Great people. Thank you. Congratulations.
The Congressional Space Medal. I love it. Hey, if this gets me closer to warp drive and beaming people and replicators and holodecks, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with all of it.
I promise you it makes you no closer to that.
Listen, sir, one day I will have all of it. I'm like that kid in Galaxy Quest. It's real. It's all real. I knew it. See, we're just a few steps away. This guy was telling me he was working for Blue Origin, right? I was talking to him. I think he was a guy at the synagogue. And I said, dude, when you get me an X-Wing or something, then I'll be impressed. Just go into this upper atmosphere, but you're not really in space business. Stop with that. Get me to actual space. The most disappointing show was actually that Space Force show, which they had for half a minute with Steve Carell. So it was trying to show that they're bumbling whatevers, and it wasn't that funny. I think that's the problem.
Was that the guy that did Family Guy or whatever, too?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. It wasn't funny. There was one funny episode where I actually laughed where they sent like a dog and a monkey into space and the dog ate the monkey. And that was kind of funny. But other than that, it was just dumb. Look, Space Force is a serious thing. We got to have satellite warfare. We got to colonize the moon. We got to colonize Mars. We got things to do. I just want it to be to my nerd specifications. Here's what else the president said.
The Congressional Space Medal of Honor, that's exactly what it says. This is a very rare thing. It's for courageous people, brilliant people, bestowed on astronauts who have distinguished themselves with exceptional service to the nation and all of mankind. Only 30 extraordinary men and women, long period of time, too, in the history of our country have received this extremely rare and distinguished honor. Real legends like Neil Armstrong, John Glenn, Alan Shepard, and the immortal heroes of Apollo 1. Today we add 4 new names to this elite roster of fearless explorers. It's really what they are when you think of it, fearless explorers.
I just think of myself with that line in Apollo 13 when they have Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin go visit the grandma. And are you boys with the space program too? You know, Zach and I went to see that movie. What was it, last year? It was re-released for an anniversary or something?
Yeah, it was re-released in IMAX.
It holds up
amazingly. It's a great movie.
It still is. It's a great movie. But also because it's a time capsule, you know, even the stuff they did in the 90s with the blast off and everything and the music.
Yeah.
There's some movies you go watch on the big screen, you're like,
yikes.
Yeah. No,
that
great.
one's solid.
Yeah.
Whenever I catch it on, it's one of those movies where I'll stop, and before I know it, I'm like 30 minutes. Oh, what am I doing? I own this thing. What am I doing?
I remember I'm watching it with Zach in the theaters. I'm like, do they get back? Do they make it back?
Exactly.
What happens here? Does the boat sink at the end? Oh my God. But yeah, this is really an amazing thing. But President Trump wasn't out of announcements yet. Here's what came right after that.
Today I have another historic announcement to make. This is something that's so exciting for me, given the rapid growth of the Space Force and the commercial space industry and the expansion of our ambitions to the moon and far beyond the moon. Far beyond the moon will someday be thought of a close location, like in the old days, the subway, the first stop. The moon will be a close location. But it's clear that we will need to educate and train an entire generation of skilled service members, engineers, and civil operators and everything else to do what we have to do and what we're right now doing the best and will continue, and I think by leaps and bounds. And that's why in a few moments I will sign an executive order to begin the process of creating a new national academy. It's called the U.S. Space Academy. That's a big deal. So you think of West Point, and you think of Annapolis, and you think of the Air Force Academy, and you think of the Coast Guard Academy. Is great. They're all great. But we're going to have now a Space Force. We're going to have an academy for what the people in this room love the most. That's exciting.
I don't know why I'm thinking of that movie Space Camp. Leah Thompson and the robot. And
that's another one I never saw.
Oh, you're not missing anything. Yeah. It's a terrible movie. It does not hold up well at all. When I was a kid, I didn't like it that much. It just seemed like not great, and it was just not great. Yeah, it does not hold up well at all. But no, in all seriousness, this is actually where the next battlefield will be. You talk about what happened with Iran. They're launching ballistic missiles. This is what we're talking about with satellites and missiles. That's why you need the Space Force. I know people like to make fun of the Space Force. I know I like to make fun of the Space Force. This is the next battlefield. It really, really is. And we have to be prepared for it. But also, this is how you do exploration. This is how you do exploration, this kind of stuff. And this is how you develop more technology. A lot of the technology we have these days is based on the Apollo missions. What's the last big leap in technology? The iPod? The iPhone? That's the last big Wi-Fi. That's it. Give us something new. If I'm going to get warp drive, if I'm going to get beaming technology, we need the Space Force. I'm excited about that. Velcro from the space program. Of course, I do love the story about how the U.S. government spent millions of dollars trying to get a pen that would write in space, and the Russians used a pencil. That one's one of my absolute. That's the U.S. government. We love to spend money on dumb things, so now we got a pen that can write in space. That's going to do it for us today, my friends. Ari Hoffman Show Reloaded is up next. Fear not, we'll be back on Monday with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. You've been listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.